Steve were driving home after a long day of looking at cars, driving cars, and having an up close and personal. By my count, we ran out of 11 vehicles, and I'm going to try to kind of wrap it up and get your sense and my sense of what we saw today.
Okay.
Let's start with that Fiat 500X.
Okay, yeah, it was a hard day's work indeed, but somebody's got to do it, I guess. Yeah, the Fiat 500, it's a nice small vehicle, not a lot of power, but more room inside than I think either of us expected. Very comfortable, smooth driving, good choice.
Yeah, and I was very impressed. I saw the thing introduced out in Los Angeles last year, and they built that car for America, and they did a really good job. It fits the American psyche and style and size perfectly. I was impressed.
And it had a little more power than I expected too. It's got a 2.4 liter engine. I thought it was 2.0 or less, and it's got a lot more power than the original 500, which was, of course, a much smaller car. But everybody thought that one was pretty underpowered. But this one had pretty adequate power, I'd say.
I thought it was terrific. It was great. We also got in the Ford Explorer Platinum.
Yes, what a nice car that was. Nice truck. That's still an SUV. Well, it's really a car-based platform now, but we think of that more as an SUV than a crossover. But yes, this Platinum is a new trim level and a very luxurious one indeed.
The fit and finish was outstanding.
Oh yeah, stitching everywhere, fine leather, soft touch materials. Again, not a lot of power. It had the 300 horse, or 350 horse, I guess it is, EcoBoost V6, which is pretty good power, but compared to some of the other things we drove today, we drove some hot stuff, so it didn't feel all that strong. But it is. It's a good powertrain. And
you drove the SS Chevrolet.
The Chevy SS. It's a Australian GM product. It's a rear-wheel drive. It's got a Corvette engine, essentially, the big V8, and man, was that a hoot. It's a mid-size car, but it's rear-wheel drive, so it handles really well. And again, the fit and finish in that was really remarkable. Nice leather, stitching everywhere, nice trim, and I could really live with a car like that.
I drove at maybe the same time you were doing that. I was driving the Buick Regal, and I got to tell you, that is a smooth vehicle. That is so nice. On the back road, it was perfect performer.
And very quiet, I'm sure.
Very quiet. I understand why the Buick folks have had such a success with that, and why it's so popular. You could drive that anywhere. Long distance would be a wonderful ride.
Do you recall if that was a GS version?
Yes, it was.
Performance version?
Yeah, it was the GS. So it had that performance, which was the added boost and a lot of fun to drive. Yeah, that was great. I thought, well, there's a lot of hot stuff here. I'm going to get in the Buick and see what they've got. And it was impressive. It was wonderful. I tell you what also impressive was that Jaguar F-Type.
Oh, yes. I wish I'd have gotten behind the wheel of that. But as you recall, somebody else was getting behind the wheel just as we were approaching it. So you took the racetrack with the other driver, Dave Bowe, our friend from Chicago.
Yeah, and that was really an impressive bit of driving on his part. But I tell you, the F-Type Jaguar is a smooth character. This thing had so much power, and of course we had limitations going on that track. They didn't want you to go over 70. He probably got up to 85, because there's a pace car you follow, as you know, and every little time he wanted to gun it. It had incredible performance.
Jaguar has managed to maintain that sensuality that's characterized them since the early 1950s, basically. And even though it's now owned, Jaguar and Land Rover are both owned by Tata of India, they've left them alone, the Brits alone, engineer, design, and style those cars. So Jaguars today are really exceptional, and we had a press conference just a week ago talking about all the new products Jaguar's going to have in the next 2 years. Amazing product revitalization. So look for a lot of exciting stuff from Jaguar in the next couple of years.
Also, and they're introducing diesel options too.
Oh yes, they're going to have a diesel version. Now, of course, with Volkswagen's diesel troubles, there wasn't a lot of talk of diesel at this event, but I'm still a diesel fan myself, so I'm anxious to see what they're going to do with it. Diesels, of course, are very popular in Europe. They're very efficient. You get a lot of torque, so performance is good. So we'll see what they have to do.
Well, let's talk about that Range Rover, since we're in that same family there.
I think of that as a sophisticated brute. What a beautiful car. 550 horsepower, a full-frame SUV weighing probably, I don't know, 6,500 pounds or 5,500, I don't know. It's a big, heavy thing, but man, did that have some acceleration. But what was even cooler was that you had a little button on the console that you could push and open up the exhaust system, so it could really roar as you put your foot in it.
Do you think that's why we get word that the police were upset?
Well, actually, I kind of tiptoed along that section of road where the residential places were, but as you recall, we had this one stretch of road south of the industrial complex where we were testing these cars that was wide open. There's about a 2-mile stretch with not a driveway or anything. Perfect visibility, so you could really open it up, and we did. I don't want to say how fast we were going for fear of incriminating myself, but
well, you could approximate the 0 to 60. How fast did that take?
Well, they claim 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and I have no reason to doubt that. Once I did it myself from a standing stop, and watching the speedometer and sort of counting to myself, I think 4.5 seconds is pretty accurate. And a car that size or a truck that size, that's pretty amazing.
And there were two beefy guys inside the car too.
That's right. Yeah,
I won't say who that is, but
like it was carrying a couple of lightweights, that's for sure. Yeah.
So it didn't struggle.
That was one of my favorite cars we drove today.
Now
Another of my favorites that I drove and you didn't, just before we hooked up earlier, was the new Mazda Miata, the little roadster from Mazda. They had 2 of them there, and I made sure I got the performance version with Brembo brakes and lots of other racy stuff. It's called a Club edition for club racers, I guess. And I took that out on that same high-speed road, and with that 6-speed manual transmission, that nice wild engine, and a car that weighs probably not much more than 2,000 pounds. That was a real treat too.
Now we're actually driving the CX-3 right now.
CX-3. Mazda hosted one of the meals so that they could tout the new CX-3, which we're driving at, which is a small crossover, compact, might even be considered a subcompact, I don't know, but it's a nice little car. It's based on the 3 Series, or the Mazda 3 sedan, which is their compact. Mazda's claim to fame basically is they make conventional cars with a sportier character, and I think that's probably pretty accurate to describe this one that way.
And this vehicle's loaded with options.
Loaded loaded with standard equipment.
Right.
Yeah. The basic content for this car is pretty remarkable for what it is. Although if you look at the sticker, the total price is around in the high 20s. But we've got sunroof, and we've got navigation, and we've got 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and lots of other stuff. The basic car is probably in the low 20s, but that would even have a good content list. So,
and this is a very comfortable ride too.
Comfortable, yeah. These seats are wonderful. Once I got in it, it's pretty comfortable. Although for a guy my size, getting in this driver's door with the B pillar, between the B pillar and the A pillar, there's not a lot of room. So this is a small car, so it's a little tough for me to wedge my little torso in here.
But you did, and
I did.
here we are, right?
And here we are. It's a great driving car.
Yeah, got the head-up display over there, I see. Yeah,
head-up display. Got a nice little nav screen here.
Yep.
That has multi-functions. And the nice thing about this car, for me, I'm not a big fan of touch screens. You have to reach over here and you have to be sure what you're going to touch and so forth. This one has a little control knob down here on the console. You don't have to look at it at all. You can just lay your hand on it and you can watch the screen and you can move it around to do whatever you want it to do.
You know, another car that we enjoyed, of course, was the Mercedes
Yes,
C300.
C300 AMG.
Yep.
High performance version of Mercedes small sedan.
Right.
It's got a coupe look to it. The way they're styling these Mercedes these days, they have that low roof line, the taper, the tight taper on the back and so forth. So it looks more like a coupe. But I'll tell you what really impressed me about that. Its performance was very good, and it should be for an AMG, of course.
Right.
But the trim on the inside, it had what would appear to be bamboo, kind of a dark bamboo. The metals, all of the leathers, everything inside was just top notch.
Let's talk about Volvo for a second. We both were in the XC90. And I got to tell you, that was something special.
Yeah, that's sort of how we finished our day. That was such a popular car, we hardly could get in it all day. Everybody was lined up to drive that one.
We had to shoo a lot of people away.
Yeah, we did. Yep. But, you know, and here's Volvo, another company that's owned by, well, in this case, the Chinese, Geely. But the Chinese have not interfered with the Swedes, other Europeans who design and engineer these cars. So the Volvo is what you would expect it to be. They manufacture them in China, though, which is surprising, and they bring them to the United States. So really, the first successful Chinese import is a Volvo.
Talk about the powering. How are they powering these?
Well, the Volvo company about 3 or 4 years ago committed to all of their new products being only 4-cylinder engines. No more 6s, no more 8s, no more 5s. In fact, one of their current models is a 5, but it's a carryover. So what they've done is both turbocharged and supercharged a 4-cylinder engine, a 2-liter in fact, to power this, what's essentially a mid-size, almost a full-size crossover. And has plenty of power. It's not a hot rod. It's nothing like that big V8 powered Range Rover, but it's got plenty of power, and it's very luxurious. Now, the one that we drove today, and I don't know if it was a result of having been driven by journalists all day, but his brakes were beginning to shudder a little bit, fade a little bit. So I'm guessing that they've got a little work to do there. So, but overall, it's a wonderful car. XC90, of course, is a pioneer of the crossover genre. So,
did you also get a chance to get in the V60 cross country?
Yes, the V6 cross country is the little wagon. Well, not a little wagon; it's a mid-size wagon, but it's a sport wagon. And you know what was amazing about that is, now this is a car that costs less than 50 grand loaded, but it felt, it drove, and it looked inside like the very most expensive German cars, the Mercedes, the BMWs, the Audis. I was really impressed with that car. Now that was the one with the 5-cylinder carryover. Power was good, not exceptional, but the car itself was magnificent. I would love to have one of those.